A 5-game sweep. Oh my goodness. Double digits. Just complete blowout. Hey, we needed this one, man. We needed something to smile and laugh about.
That's a W.
Made it out. All you gotta do is keep making it out.
Woo! Dubs!
The Indiana Fever just handed the Chicago Sky another loss, and that makes it 5. 5 in a row, without Caitlin Clark on the floor. Yeah, you heard that right. The Fever just turned the Sky into their personal mop. Forget rivalry, forget hype. This is pure domination, and Chicago has no answers.
Losing streak with an impressive 24-point win in their game on Wednesday.
So let me ask you, how does it feel watching a team built around Angel Reese get cooked 5 straight times without Caitlin even touching the court? Drop your thoughts below, because this right here might go down as one of the most embarrassing storylines in WNBA history. Now, where do we even start? Maybe with Chicago thinking they had a chance. Spoiler alert, they didn't. From Game 1 all the way through this 5th beatdown, the Fever controlled the pace, controlled the boards, and controlled the entire mood. It wasn't just wins, it was humiliation on repeat. Angel Reese tried to make noise off the court, calling out teammates, stirring up drama, but guess what? None of that helped when the ball tipped. Every single time, Indiana had the answer.
The Indiana Fever just absolutely smoked the Chicago Sky. What a win!
And it wasn't like Indiana needed miracles. They didn't need Caitlin Clark dropping 30. They didn't need buzzer beaters or lucky breaks. They just rolled in, handled business, and sent Chicago packing, over and over again. This was supposed to be the matchup everyone wanted, Caitlin versus Angel, the college rivalry spilling over into the pros. Instead, we got Caitlin in street clothes, and Indiana still putting Chicago in the dirt. Talk about irony. Kelsey Mitchell deserves a special mention here. Every single game, she came out swinging like she had something personal against Chicago. From the opening minutes, it felt like she wanted to end the game before halftime. Buckets, assists, defense, it was all there. 20 points like clockwork, just dismantling the Sky's perimeter. Chicago couldn't keep up. They couldn't even slow her down. Then you add Aaliyah Boston in the paint. Even when she's not dropping monster numbers, her presence alone was enough to make Chicago look lost. Camila Cardoso tried, sure, but when your team is already bleeding points, there's only so much you can do. Indiana didn't even need Aaliyah to go full beast mode. They were winning so comfortably she could coast at times. That's how bad it got. And Natasha Howard finally decided to show up after weeks of looking invisible. Leave it to Chicago to wake her up. She hadn't looked like herself in almost 10 games, but against the Sky, she looked like she'd been saving all her energy just for this. 18 points, rebounds, steals, the whole package. Chicago made her look like an all-star again, and trust me, Fever fans will take that gift every time. Lexi Hull added grit on defense, Odyssey Sims chipped in her usual scrappy buckets, and Aerial Powers played like someone fighting for a permanent spot. Everyone contributed. That's the thing. This wasn't Caitlin Clark carrying the show. This was a full team effort, night after night, burying the Sky deeper into irrelevance. Meanwhile, Chicago looked like they wanted the season to be over months ago. Rachel Banham playing 26 minutes and putting up a goose egg? That's not WNBA-level basketball. Ariel Atkins getting thrown under the bus by Angel Reese, then coming out flat? That locker room is cooked. And without chemistry, without leadership, all you get is empty minutes, empty stats, and empty results. And here's the kicker. Angel Reese wasn't even on the floor. You'd think her absence would rally the Sky, give them that prove-it energy. Nope, they looked even worse. Say what you want about Angel, but at least she plays with fire. Without her, Chicago was just bland oatmeal. No spark, no fight, nothing. So here's the reality. Indiana didn't just beat Chicago. They exposed them. Exposed the roster, exposed the lack of depth, exposed the fact that all that hype about a rivalry was nothing but smoke and marketing. Caitlin Clark was supposed to be the storyline. Instead, her team handled business without her, and made history in the process. And the Sky. They'll need more than Angel Reese's media quotes to fix this disaster. They'll need a full rebuild, maybe a whole new locker room. Because right now, the Indiana Fever owns them, 5 games straight, and the sweep is going down in the books as one of the most embarrassing runs for Chicago fans to swallow. Chicago Sky fans have to be sick right now. Imagine hyping up Angel Reese as the face of your franchise, selling her as the rival to Caitlin Clark, only to get swept 5 straight times by a Fever squad missing their superstar. That's not rivalry, that's a reality check, and it's brutal. Indiana didn't just win, they stomped, they clowned, they embarrassed, over and over again. Look at the numbers. Out of the 5 games, Chicago couldn't even make one competitive enough to spin into a moral victory. They weren't just losses, they were blowouts. Indiana hung 20 and 30-point beatdowns on them like it was casual scrimmage. That's not the kind of stat line you recover from with a motivational speech. That's the kind of thing that lives in your nightmares. And let's talk about the locker room drama, because it matters.
It says, Sky caught off guard by Angel Reese's public comments. The Sun-Times spoke with Sky veterans who were surprised by Reese's recent comments. A player-only meeting was held Wednesday to address it. Let's take a look at some of the quotes. Ariel Atkins, somebody who stood up for Angel Reese, somebody who held Angel Reese down. She is livid. Ariel Atkins addressed Reese directly while Rachel Banham and her teammates voiced everything she felt. At this point, she's more resigned. I think I just really don't care. She said, I'm so over all of this SHIT. If I was younger, it would have affected me more, but I'm grown and I just don't care. For a player often called the heart of the locker room, though, there's a part of her that does. Wow.
Angel Reese throwing her teammates under the bus might have made headlines, but it also fractured the Sky beyond repair. Ariel Atkins, one of the few veterans trying to hold that team together, straight up said she's tired of the drama. Rachel Banham, completely ineffective on the floor and probably done in Chicago after this season. That locker room isn't a team, it's a soap opera. Indiana exposed that too. Meanwhile, Indiana's chemistry without Caitlin Clark is the story nobody saw coming. Everybody assumed the Fever couldn't function without her. They said Clark carried the team. They said Indiana was hopeless without her scoring and playmaking. Guess what? The Fever didn't just survive, they thrived. Players stepped up. Mitchell took over scoring duties. Sims brought energy. Boston held the middle. Howard remembered she was supposed to contribute. They became a complete unit, and it showed every single time against Chicago. The most humiliating part for the Sky? Indiana didn't even need perfection. They didn't need everyone playing their best. They just needed to show up with energy and execute, because Chicago made mistake after mistake. Missed shots, sloppy turnovers, broken defense, it was all there, gift-wrapped for the Fever. When your opponent is handing you opportunities like that, you don't just win, you dominate. Now let's be clear, Caitlin Clark sitting out makes this even more painful for Chicago, because deep down, they know the narrative. If Caitlin had played, the league would have sold every matchup as the rivalry of the year. Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark, college beef renewed, ticket sales through the roof. Instead, the so-called rivalry turned into a sweep where Clark didn't even suit up. You can't call it a rivalry when one side doesn't win a single game. You call that an execution. Let's revisit each matchup briefly because the consistency is almost comical. Game 1, Fever blow them out early, never let up. Game 2, same story. Chicago pretends to hang around before getting flattened. Game 3, another 20-point loss. Game 4, at this point, Sky fans were begging for mercy. Game 5, the broom comes out, and Indiana makes history. That's 5 straight L's served on a silver platter. Think about what that does to morale. Chicago players know they can't beat Indiana, with or without Clark. They know every time they step on the floor against the Fever, they're going to get exposed. That's not something you fix with film sessions. That's a mental scar, and the Fever just made sure it's going to stick. Now, the Fever didn't just rely on offense to get this done. Their defense suffocated Chicago. They forced bad shots, clogged the paint, and made life miserable for anyone wearing sky blue. Lexi Hull, with her scrappy defense and energy, disrupted plays and frustrated Chicago guards. Sims, even after taking a hard spill, kept coming back with relentless effort. The Fever as a group committed to locking down, and Chicago folded every single time. And here's the kicker. This dominance wasn't even expected. The Fever are a young team. They're still building. Clark is in her second year, Boston is still early in her career, and the roster has plenty of holes. Yet even with those flaws, Indiana is miles ahead of Chicago. That tells you just how badly the Sky front office has failed. Instead of building around talent and chemistry, they banked everything on hype. And hype doesn't win games. Speaking of hype, Angel Reese being the centerpiece of Chicago's marketing campaign has officially backfired. Sure, she brings eyeballs. She trends on Twitter. She gets people talking. But when she's off the court and your team gets swept without putting up a fight, what are you selling? Excuses? Drama? That's not how you grow a fan base. That's how you lose one. Meanwhile, Indiana doesn't need excuses. They're building a real foundation. Clark, Boston, Mitchell, Howard, Sims. That's a core that can win games. And now, with this sweep over Chicago, they've proven they can dominate even without their biggest star. That's history. That's statement basketball. That's how you let the league know you're coming. Let's be brutally honest here. The Chicago Sky are not just bad. They are historically bad against Indiana. You can't go 0-5 in a season series and call yourself competitive. You can't lose by double digits every time and pretend you're close. That's not rivalry. It's humiliation. The Fever own the Sky. They rent space in their heads. Every time Chicago looks at the schedule, they're already bracing for another loss. Even Chicago's so-called bright spots weren't enough. Camila Cardoso had her best showing of the season in one of those games, dropping 18 points with solid rebounding. But guess what? It didn't matter. One good stat line doesn't erase a blowout. You can put lipstick on a pig, but at the end of the day, it's still a pig. And the Sky? They're still getting cooked. Indiana fans, on the other hand, have every reason to celebrate. This wasn't just about wins. This was about making a statement to the league. They showed depth. They showed resilience. They showed that they don't need to rely solely on Caitlin Clark to be dangerous. And for a young team, that's massive. It builds confidence. It builds belief. It builds a winning culture. And culture is something Chicago doesn't have right now. Their culture is chaos. Their culture is finger-pointing. Their culture is drama in the locker room and failure on the court. That's not sustainable. That's not winning basketball. That's a circus act. And the clowns just got swept out of the building. Here's the bigger picture. The WNBA wanted the Clark versus Reese storyline to be its main event. They scheduled it 5 times. They sold it like it was Mayweather versus Pacquiao. And what did fans get? 5 straight Indiana wins, no Clark on the court, and Reese sidelined or drowned out by her own locker room drama. The league's golden storyline turned into a one-sided embarrassment. That's not what they wanted, but that's what they got. And honestly, Indiana doesn't care. They'll take those 5 wins and keep moving. They'll take that broom and keep sweeping. Because every win matters in this playoff race, and every statement matters for building this franchise's future. The Fever are on the rise, and Chicago is sinking fast. Now let's talk about what this sweep means going forward. For Indiana, it's proof they can win as a unit, no matter what the headlines say. For Chicago, it's proof they need to blow it all up. Start over. Get rid of the dead weight. Rebuild around players who actually produce, instead of players who just make headlines. Otherwise, next season will look just like this one, embarrassing and unwatchable. So here's the bottom line. Indiana made history. 5 straight wins over Chicago, all without Caitlin Clark. That's dominance. That's proof this team has more than one weapon. That's a nightmare for every other franchise in the league. And for the Sky? Well, they might as well invest in brooms because the Fever just swept them into irrelevance. The sweep wasn't just a storyline, it was a statement. The Fever are here. They're young, they're hungry, and they're coming for more. Chicago, they're just another stepping stone flattened on the way to something bigger. Indiana fans can celebrate history. Chicago fans, they can argue about locker room drama all offseason. Either way, the record books will remember this. Indiana Fever, 5-0 against Chicago Sky. No Caitlin Clark required. So tell me, who do you think looked worse in this whole mess? The Chicago Sky for getting swept, or the WNBA for trying to sell us a rivalry that never existed? Drop your answers in the comments, because this one's going to sting for a long time. And before we wrap this up, don't forget to show some love. Like this video, hit subscribe, and turn on those notifications. We've got plenty more stories coming your way, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's next. Support goes a long way, and together, we'll keep exposing the truth behind the hype.